All right, coming at you with a Stopping Socialism TV segment. I'm Donald Kendal, joined by Justin Haskins. We got a little special announcement to make about a coming soon, and a book you might have already heard about, but if you haven't, you should be aware of it. But before we get into that, I always have to put that message out there that if you want to help our channel to grow, you want the message of Stopping Socialism to get in front of more people, you can help just by hitting the like button on these things, leaving a comment, being a subscriber, sharing it, all things that cost you absolutely zero, but help break through those big tech algorithms that prevents content like this from being put out in front of more people. So Justin, what's coming soon? What is this? What are we looking out for?
Well, this is something that you and I have been working on for a very, very long time. And our good buddy Glenn Beck has also been working on it. He couldn't make it to today's show because
we put out feelers out there, but
we actually never even asked him because
no, we didn't.
He's too important for it. But we've got an incredible new book coming out called The Great Reset: Joe Biden and the Rise of 21st Century Fascism. This is a book that we have been working on with Glenn for, I don't know, has it been a year and a half? How long has it been? Maybe not like quite a year and a half. It's been a year at least since we've been working on the book. Maybe a little bit more, maybe a year and a quarter. And it's just been the most detailed investigation imaginable on this topic. Yeah. There's literally nobody on the face of the planet except for maybe Klaus Schwab and, you know, whoever writes his books, who knows, that all about that knows the Great Reset as well as we do after doing this. I mean, we literally have worked our butts off on this. Glenn has worked his butt off on this topic, done tons of specials. You and I, lots of his research team is absolutely incredible. The writing and all the stuff that they've done is just amazing. And we are, very fortunate to have been in a position where we're able to collaborate with those folks over there at the Blaze and Mercury. Glenn and his team are amazing. And we have all collectively learned so much about the Great Reset throughout this process. So it started out really as just, you and I kind of researching, me hearing about this, just sort of a random article or something. Where people were talking about the Great Reset, using this language, the Great Reset, middle of 2020, right at the height of the pandemic, lots of crazy stuff going on. And me calling you up on the phone and saying, have you heard of this thing? Have you heard of the Great Reset? What is this? And you saying, no, what is the Great Reset? What is that? Right. And me just starting to read you quotes. And you're like, whoa, that is crazy. What is going on here? And the more we started looking into it, the more we started digging, the deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper the hole got. And the more that Glenn and his team started looking into it, the deeper and deeper the hole got.
So we brought it to his attention, right? Yeah. We're like, yeah, this might be something you might want to look into. And his reaction was like, oh, yeah, there is something here. Keep looking. We're going to keep looking. You guys keep looking. And then we all just started digging into this, finding so much stuff. All the pieces started fitting together. And it's just like, yeah, this is what we need to focus our attention on. And we've been focusing our attention on it. And to Glenn Beck and his crew, to their credit, they've been focusing so much attention onto this extremely important topic. And then after a year and a half, this is going to be the end result of it. This beautiful book filled with so much good stuff. Right. This is, we do videos on this stuff a lot. Glenn does videos on this a lot. But just the way that the medium of video is, it's like you can only go in so deep, Right. But this book is detailed beyond what I can even express on this. on this video.
And really what it allowed us to do when writing this book is to dig in, as you said, with the details, dig into certain aspects of this that are... The Great Reset is a gigantic, really confusing, complicated, authoritarian, elitist puzzle. Yes. Okay. And you only really fully understand it when you take all of the pieces and you put all of the pieces together. Right. Mm-hmm. And that's not easy to, it's impossible to do in a video. It's impossible to do in an hour-long special that Glenn Beck might do. It's impossible for you and I to do it in that way. It's just impossible, because in order for you to really understand all of how big this thing is, and just how important it is, and just how far reaching it is, you might have to know one tiny little piece of the puzzle that almost no one knows.
Yeah.
And those little pieces, those little components to this, this book is full of that kind of stuff, where you're going to stop at some point. I guarantee if you read this book, you're going to have numerous times where you stop and you say, I cannot believe that this is true. Like, I cannot believe that this person is involved, or that this group is doing this. One of my favorite moments of that was, and this is super in the weeds, but if you read the book, you'll understand it. It'll make perfect sense to you. And I think that just generally, if you're on the right at all, you'll kind of understand what we're talking about here. But one of the biggest parts of the Great Reset, which we talk about in detail in this book, is how the modern monetary theory, and how the central banking system and all of that fits into this. It's a huge part of it. Almost no one talks about how that is a huge part of it, but it is maybe the most important part of the Great Reset in a lot of ways, because without it, all the other stuff they want to do becomes almost impossible to do, right? They need modern monetary theory. Well, modern monetary theory is this idea that you can essentially print as much money as you need. If you're a nation that controls your own currency, you can print as much money as you need, as long as you're not getting runaway inflation. You know, you can print as much money as you could possibly want if you control your own currency, and then use that money to basically manipulate and manage the economy in the way that you see fit, right? So it gives tons and tons of power to the people who are in the ruling class in that country, who have control over the monetary system directly or indirectly. Well, that concept of modern monetary theory was a fringe theory even 5 years ago. It was a fringe theory. Only the elites understood what this was. And many of the elites even thought it was a crazy theory and didn't buy into it necessarily, not openly. But one of the things we looked at was, who are the key players pushing for modern monetary theory? And who do they know? And who knows them? And who's promoting their work? And one of the craziest things that we found when we were doing this book was that there's this group of academics who are the key academics in modern monetary theory, pushing this in international circles, academia, Washington, D.C., Bernie Sanders, all those people. There's a key group of economists, and they're all based out of this center at this college called Bard College, which is this college that it's I think it's a liberal arts school. It's really not particularly well known amongst a lot of people. In academic circles, people have heard of Bard College, but it's a small, sort of irrelevant college in a lot of ways, right? But it became the center of modern monetary thinking, right? And so one of the craziest things that we found was that, I guess just as a coincidence,
sure,
George Soros decided to launch a massive international university campaign to promote open society ideas, George Soros type ideas. And he based this whole thing around Bard College.
Right.
He centers it at Bard College.
Yeah, not Harvard or something, or Oxford or any Bard College.
At Bard College. The president of Bard College is the head of this group. And I don't have the details in front of me right now because I just thought of this story, but centered the head of the president of that college is the chancellor of this group of these international colleges that are promoting George Soros's ideas. And George Soros is funneling massive amounts of money into Bard College, just this little irrelevant college, the center of modern monetary thinking. Not Harvard, like you said, not Yale, not Princeton, not Oxford, not Cambridge, not, whatever, but Bard College. Right. And it just so happens to be the most important thing it does academically is modern monetary theory. Yeah. Now, nobody would know this, right? This is to understand all of this, you would have to know who George Soros is. You'd have to know what he's up to. You'd have to know what his ideas are. how that ties into the Great Reset, why Bard College matters, who they are, who works with Bard College, what modern monetary theory is.
You, me, and Glenn Beck might be the only people that realize how important Bard College is to all of this.
Exactly.
And it's outlined in this book.
It's such a weird... It's a weird thing, but to know, and that was what I was trying to say earlier when I said if you have all the little puzzle pieces, then all of a sudden you'll start to see things like George Soros giving lots of money to Bard College, and you'll say, whoa, wait a minute. Isn't that the modern monetary theory college?
Yeah.
And then you start looking into that, and you start looking at what this association is all about, and you realize there's so much more to this than meets the eye. And that's just a tiny little fraction.
Oh yeah,
I mean a tiny fraction. Like that whole story might account for a single page, maybe 2 pages in this whole book.
Yeah, if you're looking at the 10,000 piece jigsaw puzzle, that's like one little corner piece.
Right, exactly.
but no, then it gets into, I mean, there's between COVID and the role that COVID has played in all of this, climate change, and now climate change is going to be being used as the justification to push all of this type of stuff. You've already mentioned the modern monetary theory. All of these things that are like, again, when you're doing a video about this topic, might seem a little tangential to the main story, are all presented in vivid detail in this to give you one giant comprehensive picture of what the Great Reset is and how it's going to be used to completely overhaul the economy and society by extension.
Yeah, I did a, just to kind of hammer that point home about just the depth of this. I did a presentation for the Heartland Institute. They did an international. This was for their climate conference. It's for their international climate conference that they held in Vegas this past year in October. And I couldn't make it, but I did it virtually. And putting together this presentation, I mean, it took me a while to piece it all together and figure out exactly how I was going to present it. And I had a PowerPoint presentation. It took me hours to put this thing together, right? And I go up and I do this presentation, and I spent, I don't know how long it is. It's like 40 or 50 minutes long or something. It's pretty long for a virtual presentation. People really liked it. It went well, received very well, got lots of views on YouTube. It's on this channel, the Stopping Socialism TV channel, if you want to watch it. But it's, you know, it's just a tiny little sliver of the information. I mean, I walked away from that presentation and I thought, I don't know that I really said enough. I don't know if I said anything that people didn't already know. And then the feedback that people gave me was like, I can't believe any of this stuff is true. This is incredible. I need your sources. And I just barely scratched the surface of what this is. It was an overview, a basic, simple overview of what this topic is.
You essentially read like the Amazon description of the book.
Basically, I mean, basically it was like the Amazon description, but with more detailed, you know, like a glossary attached to it. Was basically what I mean, this is so in-depth and complex.
The other thing that we have to make mention of is like, you know, we also were contributors for the Arguing with Socialist book, you know, Glenn Beck's latest book before this one, and like that's a great book. That's like a stocking stuffer. If you want some last minute Christmas gift, get that for sure. But like that's like done, and it's like sitting over there on my shelf over there. Fantastic book, you know. Can't say anything enough good things about that. But this book, this is like the foundation on which a lot more is going to be built on top of. Like this is going to give you this foundational information that you need to be able to stay like in the conversation when it comes to the Great Reset and all this other stuff that we've been keeping tabs on. One of the problems with this book when we were helping, you know, put this all together and everything was that like, you know, we're in the midst of it. Things are constantly changing. There's additions. You know how many rounds of like things that had to be added to this happened over the past, you know, year? It's just like it's a constantly transforming story. So at some point it's just like, all right, we just have to cut it off and get this thing to print.
Right.
But the story has been continuing. So, you know, there are ideas out there. I won't get into any details, but this story isn't going away. No. And this is going to serve as this foundational piece on which a whole much more is going to be built on top of. So again, to stay in that conversation, it's like you need this book. It's a primer. for this concept.
Right. No, without a doubt. And you know, and I'll tell, we could probably wrap it up soon because I don't want to give away too much of what's in the book, but I do want to say that, you know, tell the story of, you know, I went to I've made several trips to Dallas since where Glenn Beck has his studios and his office and everything, and met with him, and we've worked on the book together, obviously, all three of us, and other people have been involved in various degrees as well with research for a long time. You know, it's been over a year, as we've talked about, right? And I remember one of the trips I went on, one of the more recent trips, you know, I go to his office. I don't think you were there for that one. I go to his office, and we're sitting down in the office, and we're talking about the book, and we're talking about, you know, some of the finer points of it and making last minute adjustments and, you know, stuff like that. And I said to him, you know, hey, like, I know this is going to sound, sounds kind of crazy and whatever, but like, I look at the details of this because we know he and I were going back and forth, and we're really getting fired up about some of the topics or whatever. And I said to him, you know, I know this is going to sound kind of crazy, but it's like, you don't want to say that this is literally the most important thing in the world. And he stopped me and he goes, but it's basically the most important thing in the world. Right. And I'm like, yeah, it really is. If you understand what this thing is, it's the most important. It ties, because it ties so many other important things together. It's bigger than just one story that you look at in a vacuum. Right. It's a lot. And what you find is that a lot of the big headline stories that you've seen over the past year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, they're actually tied. They actually are part of a larger thing.
Exactly.
And it's not some crazy, like, oh, this is just a scheme for socialism, or, you know, this is them. They deliberately release the virus into the, you know, society, the pandemic, to cause the pandemic, to do all this. Like, there's so many conspiracy theories and misunderstandings surrounding the Great Reset. You don't need any of those conspiracy theories to make this an interesting story.
Right.
This is crazy interesting by just looking at the well-documented facts,
right,
and tying all the pieces together.
That's a great point. This isn't like grasping at straws. No. You know, this isn't trying to like interpret some like smoke signals or anything like that. Like, this is hard documented stuff. Yeah. It's just for the first time ever being all compiled and put into this, you know, easy to read story, you know, that puts all this together. It's really incredible. But
it is.
I will say, though, that if you are interested in this, and why wouldn't you be, it is available right now for pre-order on Amazon. And I would say that, and I've heard Glenn talk about this in some of his specials, that he's really pushing for people to pre-order this. And surely there's probably some type of marketing behind that. I don't know. But there is truth to the fact that, like, there are supply chain issues. There are paper shortages. I, you know, do a lot of graphic design work, and I know from working with printers that they are struggling with getting paper in to be able to print stuff. So this is like a real thing that's been an issue for these publishers and all of this. So when they have to do a print run, they base it on the amount of pre-orders. So if they sell out of books, it might be a while before they could do a second print run based on these paper supply issues. So if you want to guarantee that you actually have a book in hand January 11th, you got to pre-order it. So, you know, again, there might be a little bit of marketing spiel and all of that, but there is definitely a lot of truth in that as well.
Yeah. Well, I've been in direct contact with the publishers who are working directly with the people who are literally physically printing the copies and storing them in warehouses and all of that. And I can tell you with certainty that those people are very concerned about it, and that the time that it takes to put out a book, like this book would have come out a while ago if it weren't for supply shortages. That was one of the reasons why it wasn't in, you know, December or something like that, or November. It was because of supply shortage. So there is a real chance that if this book does well, and we think it will, that it might sell out of the first wave of copies, depending on how many copies they decide to print and distribute initially. And then you might not be able to get the book for a month. You know, that's possible. So unless you know, get the Kindle version or the audiobook version or something. So
yeah, but let me warn you, with the audiobook version, I'm not reading it.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. They didn't ask me.
You got to put that, we got to make sure that, we got to work on that for next time.
No, definitely. All right, excellent. Justin, any last words you want to say on the Great Reset, Joe Biden, and the rise of 21st century fascism?
Nope. Pre-order the book.
All right, fantastic. And I, we'll probably plan on doing some breakdowns when the book actually comes out. Maybe we'll do it chapter by chapter. I don't know. Those plans are in the works, but surely we'll be talking about this for a while to come. So if you want to be able to join the conversation a lot, make sure you read it. But anyways, all right, that'll do it for this segment of Stopping Socialism TV. Again, if you like this content, you want to see more, make sure you subscribe to this channel. If you want to help our content, our channel grow, you want to help our content get in front of more eyes, make sure you hit that like button, leave a comment, share this content. All easy to do, it's free, so why wouldn't you help us out by doing those things? Also, if you want to see more Stopping Socialism content, you can also go to stoppingsocialism.com, or you can find our content shared across various social medias, whether it's Facebook, Stopping Socialism, or we have an Instagram account, we have a Parler account, we even have a socialist Twitter account. So if you look hard enough, you will find our stuff. But that'll do it for this segment of Stopping Socialism TV. We will talk to you next time.